He's spoken about Chinese President Xi Jinping's global governance initiative. The Chinese premier has also in fact warned against returning to a Cold War mentality and has emphasized on the need to practice multilateralism. He's also defended free trade and criticized the imposition of steep tariffs in a veiled attack against the United States. He's also stated that a major cause of the current economic doldrums is the rise in unilateral and protectionist measures such as tariff hikes. He has claimed that China is ready to work with all parties to solve more practical problems and promote world peace and developments. Listen in.
当前世界进入新的动荡变革期，单边主义、冷战思维卷土重来，历经80年的国际规则秩序受到严重冲击，曾经行之有效的国际体系屡遭破坏。中国愿同各国一道，坚守联合国理想，弘扬多边主义精神，积极落实4大全球倡议，朝着构建人类命运共同体的崇高目标不断迈进，努力把世界建设得更加和谐、美丽。
Shifting focus to more updates coming in, we're now learning that UN sanctions on Iran are set to return back into force nearly a decade after being lifted under the 2015 nuclear deal. This move follows Britain, France and Germany accusing Tehran of breaching its commitments. A last-ditch attempt by Russia and China to delay the sanctions failed at the Security Council, securing only 4 votes. The sanctions will ban arms sales, uranium enrichment and freeze assets linked to Iran's missile and nuclear programs. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has told the Council that Tehran will never respond to threats or pressure and called the US and Europe responsible for burying diplomacy. The IAEA, meanwhile, confirmed that inspections of Iranian nuclear sites have resumed even as Western powers remain unconvinced about the program's peaceful intent. Listen in to what transpired.
As military attacks have failed to reach any of their declared objectives, the so-called snapback mechanism will fail too. The only solution is dialogue. The JCPOA proves this. Iran will never respond to threats or pressure. We respond only to respect. Today's decision has obliterated whatever remaining trust of the Iranian people in the promises of the West.
Iran has recalled its ambassadors to Germany, France and the United Kingdom for consultations amid rising tensions over the dispute mechanism to reinstate the UN sanctions. This move comes after the failed attempt by Russia and China at the UNSC to delay the reimposition of these sanctions. In fact, Russia's deputy envoy to the UN warned that reimposing sanctions could have serious consequences. Meanwhile, China emphasized that Iran has repeatedly sent positive signals and urged for diplomacy to remain open. Iran's foreign minister stressed that diplomacy will continue but will become more complicated and difficult, placing full responsibility on the European nations and the United States of America. With us on the broadcast is Major General G.G. Dwivedi, a defense expert joining us from New Delhi. Thank you for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World. As I mentioned earlier, Russia and China did attempt to buy some time for Iran to ensure that the sanctions are not placed, but they have failed to secure enough votes. Earlier, Iranian officials had warned that they will scrap the agreement allowing the IAEA to inspect their nuclear sites. So in this context, what impact might the reinstated sanctions have on the IAEA's monitoring efforts, and will Iran follow through with their threat?
Well, the point is that this issue has been on the boil for some time. Primarily, the contention is that E3, that is the Germany, UK and France now, they had taken it up that as far as inspection mechanism is concerned, Iran is not complying with the teams they are not cooperating with the inspection teams, and therefore they are deemed to be violating the terms and conditions. And in fact, we discussed the issue last week as well, that there was a proposal that in case the inspection teams are not allowed or they are not satisfied, then the E3 countries, that is UK, Germany, and France, they'll take on to pursue that these sanctions are imposed. Of course, Russia and China, which are the allies of Iran, they did make effort to scuttle these sanctions, but then the vote of count was not in their favor, and this sanction, proposal has got through. And in that, now in case the further progress is not there, or Iran does not show enough evidence that it is cooperating or not violating, then these sanctions will further come into play. And Iranian stance is that no, they have been cooperating and they cannot be coerced, and they only need to be respected and not forced down, which they are not cow down. Now, the issue is whether Iran is able to satisfy the inspection regime, or this sanction will come through, and despite the effort of its allies, Russia and China. So we have to wait and watch as to how diplomacy further continues, because in such situations, a diplomatic door is always open, and we'll need to see whether this issue has some resolution through diplomatic means, or otherwise the sanction will further be imposed, and that will definitely not in the interest of Iranians, because the economy as it is taking a hit. And let's see, wait and watch as to what further diplomatic initiatives are taken at the UN. But right at the moment, the sanctions are going to be imposed from the next month, because there was a window that was given by the E3 countries, but I think that window has lapsed, and therefore the sanctions will come into place, and we'll have to need to wait and watch as if there is any further, deadlocked on this issue through dialogue, or the sanction will come into place and Iran will have to take on the hit. Over to you.
Indeed, sir. And speaking of diplomatic channels, we are now learning that Iran has recalled its ambassadors from the E3 nations for consultations. Meanwhile, the French envoy to the UN has stated that reimposition of these sanctions will not spell the end of diplomacy. Iran has, in the meantime, leveled accusations that the United States and Europe have quote-unquote buried diplomacy. In this context, is there still any room for dialogue, or have these nations now reached a stalemate for good?
No, I think, at this time there is a state of impasse, but diplomatically there always room, or there always a window that is still open, because after all, it's only through dialogue such issues can be resolved. Because if you recall that in June, when Israelis and Americans struck the nuclear installation of Iran, then Iran had taken a very stern step that they will not allow any more inspections of the nuclear installations. And that's where actually the whole thing got into the tailspin. But the point at the issue is, while Iran has recalled its ambassadors for consultation, they have not recalled them permanently. They have recalled them for consultation to see whether this issue can be still diplomatically resolved, and it should get into a state of stalemate. And it is also in the Iranian interests that they should avoid further sanctions. So I am quite hopeful that there will be some movement forward, and diplomacy still has a chance. And I am sure both sides will try to resolve the issue diplomatically and not end up in a state of stalemate. Over to you.
All right, sir. Thank you.